Most of the browsers you use aren't what you think they are. Chrome, Edge, Opera, Brave, Vivaldi, Samsung Internet, Arc, all of them. Practically every single one are built on the same project, a project Google controls. And the most ironic part is that this project calls itself open source, as if it belonged to everyone, to the community, to the free internet, when in practice, it's the most silent and most effective tool Google has ever built to shape how the internet works for 85% of the people on the planet. And I'm not talking about Chrome. You already know about Chrome. I'm talking about the project underneath Chrome, the one no ad has ever mentioned, the one Google absolutely wants you to use but would prefer you'd never understand. I'm talking about Chromium. The real engine, the foundation, the bedrock on which the modern internet stands and on which Google has spent 15 years quietly building the most subtle structure of digital power that exists. To understand the story, you have to go back to the 90s, when the internet was barely taking shape. In 1993, Mosaic appeared, the first graphical browser that made the internet look like something a normal person could actually use. Netscape came out of that, and by 1995, it had 90% of the market. It was essentially the gateway to the internet. Then Microsoft saw it and went into war mode. They launched Internet Explorer bundled for free with Windows 95. It wasn't better than Netscape, but it came pre-installed on the operating system everyone used. What followed became known as the first browser war, and Microsoft won it using tactics that would later become the subject of multiple antitrust lawsuits. By 2002, Internet Explorer had 96% of the market, and that's when Microsoft made the mistake that opened everything up. They stopped innovating. With 96% of the market, why bother? Internet Explorer 6 arrived in 2001, and they basically abandoned it. No major update for 5 years. The internet kept evolving, and Microsoft's attitude was basically, meh, doesn't matter. In 2004, Firefox arrived and broke that monopoly. Fast, with tabs and extensions, with open source code. In 4 years, it went from 0 to 28% of the market. Microsoft's grip was crumbling, and it was exactly at that moment that Google started seriously thinking about building its own browser. Because Google had a massive problem. Gmail, Google Maps, Google Docs, all the applications it was developing needed more powerful browsers with faster JavaScript engines, and the browsers available simply weren't cutting it. If nobody else was going to solve it at the speed Google needed, Google would do it themselves. On September 2nd, 2008, Google launched Chrome. It brought real innovations. The V8 JavaScript engine was between 10 and 15 times faster than Internet Explorer 7 in benchmarks from that era. Each tab ran in its own process, the address bar and search bar were unified, the design was clean, the effect was immediate. In less than 4 years, Chrome went from 0 to the most used browser in the world. But alongside Chrome came something that went almost unnoticed: Chromium. And here's the first thing Google would rather you not connect. Chrome and Chromium are not the same thing, and that difference is not an accident. Chromium is the open source version, the complete engine published under a free license, available for anyone to download, study, modify, and build on. Anyone can take it and make it their own browser. And that sounds great. Open source, transparency, freedom. But Chrome, the product Google distributes to regular users, has layers on top of Chromium that Chromium doesn't have. Integrated Google services, account sync, telemetry that sends users' data back to Google, advertising systems. Chromium, by definition of its license, can't include any of that. If you download pure Chromium, there's no Google telemetry by default. Why does that matter? Because Google has every incentive for users to think of Chrome as a product, modern, fast from Google, and not to think of Chromium as the public foundation it's built on. Chrome is where the business is. Chrome is where the data is. And Chromium is the infrastructure that makes it impossible for anyone else to compete with that business, because the entire ecosystem ends up depending on the engine Google controls. So why did Google release it publicly at all? Partly genuine conviction. The engineers who built Chrome came from an open source culture, but it was also pure strategy. If the code is open, other developers improve it for free. If others build on it, the ecosystem grows around Google's engine, and that suited Google enormously. You already know how this works. This video is sponsored by Private Internet Access. Every time you connect to the internet at a coffee shop, at an airport, even at home, your device is broadcasting information out in the open. Your real IP, your activity, your data. Anyone on the same network with the right tools can intercept it without you ever knowing. I have Private Internet Access installed on my phone and laptop, and I turn it on whenever I'm out of the house. What it does is encrypt your entire connection and hide your real IP behind one of their own. They're at over 30 million downloads, they have a strict no logs policy, verified in actual courts and independently audited by Deloitte. And a single subscription covers all your devices at once with no limit. It also lets you switch your virtual location to 91 different countries, which means accessing streaming libraries that normally aren't available where you live. Right now, they have an 83% discount. It comes out to $2.03 a month with 4 extra months completely free. And if you try it and it's not for you, they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. No questions asked. Head to piavpn.com/byte to grab it. Now listen to this, because here's the moment most people don't know about and that matters the most. When Chrome launched in 2008, its rendering engine wasn't original to Google. It was WebKit, the engine Apple had developed for Safari. Google took WebKit as its base, and for a while, both browsers shared the same core engine. Whatever Apple improved in WebKit benefited Chrome and vice versa. But in 2013, Google made a decision that changed the architecture of the internet forever. They announced they were going to fork WebKit, take the code and create their own independent branch, and build their own engine. They called it Blink. The technical justification was real. Google wanted to take Chromium in a direction that created friction with Apple, which also had a voice in WebKit's development. With Blink, Google could move the engine as fast as it wanted without coordinating with anyone. The move was technically brilliant. In the 2 years after the fork, Chrome advanced at a speed no other browser could match. The practical result was that after 2013, the engine powering Chrome and the engine powering Safari were no longer the same. The internet started to have two main technical branches, Blink from Google and WebKit from Apple. And Gecko, which Firefox used, built completely independently from the start. To put it simply, the internet is a massive city and browsers are the cars. Blink is the engine design that most of them use. If Google designs that engine, Google decides what kind of roads it runs well on, what fuel it needs, and at what speed it operates best. Other manufacturers can change the body, paint it differently, add extra features, but the engine is Google's design. And if 80% of the cars in the city use that engine, the road builders are going to design their roads for that engine. The entire ecosystem adapts. That's exactly what happened with Blink and the internet. Because Chromium isn't just Chrome, today the list of browsers built on it is so long that it's easier to list the ones that aren't. Edge, the successor to Internet Explorer, Microsoft, after decades of building their own browser engine, first Trident in Internet Explorer, then Edge HTML in the original Edge, decided in 2018 they were done. Too much work, too many resources, too hard to keep pace with Chromium's relentless progress. Microsoft threw in the towel and rebuilt Edge from scratch on Chromium. The same Microsoft that had won the first browser war by crushing Netscape surrendered and moved to Google's engine. Opera, the Norwegian browser that was genuinely innovative in the early 2000s, the first to bring tabs to the mainstream, the first to have a built-in pop-up blocker, also moved to Chromium in 2013, the same year Google launched Blink. They abandoned Presto, their own engine of 15 years. The reason? Basically the same. They didn't have the resources to keep up. And the list goes on. Brave, built on Chromium. Vivaldi, built on Chromium. Samsung Internet, pre-installed on hundreds of millions of Samsung phones, built on Chromium. Arc, the browser that's been generating all the hype lately for its radical design, built on Chromium. DuckDuckGo on desktop, Chromium. Kiwi on Android, Chromium. The browsers built into smart TVs running Android TV, Chromium. If it's not Firefox and it's not Safari, the odds that it's Chromium are extremely high. Today, more than 80% of the internet users worldwide browse from a Chromium-based browser. The only major holdouts are Firefox, with less than 5% of the global market, and Safari, which lives almost entirely inside Apple's ecosystem. And here's something most people don't connect, even though they should. Remember I said Brave is built on Chromium? Brave, the browser that markets itself as the option for people who don't want to give their data to Google, that blocks all Google and Meta trackers by default, that has its own crypto reward system, is built on Google's engine. And you might think, okay, but if they modified the code, if they stripped out Google's tracking parts, what's the problem? The answer is that there's no problem in the sense that they're lying to you directly. Brave does remove the trackers. Brave is more private than Chrome in many real ways. But using Google's engine to browse is like building a different car using someone else's engine design. The car might be different, but the engine determines what it can do. For the same reason, Microsoft and Opera couldn't sustain theirs. Building a browser engine from scratch and keeping it updated is extraordinarily difficult and expensive. Firefox has done it for 20 years with Gecko, and it's cost hundreds of millions of dollars and a team of hundreds of engineers. Brave is a relatively small company, Opera was mid-sized, even Microsoft decided it wasn't worth it. So the rational option is to take Chromium, modify it, add your own layer on top, and call it your product. That's not fraud, but it is ironic, and that irony matters. There was a moment between 2018 and 2019 where Google's power over the internet became visible in a very concrete way, with something called AMP, Accelerated Mobile Pages. AMP was a Google initiative to create ultra-fast versions of web pages for mobile. The pitch was simple. Web pages were too slow on phones because they were loaded with heavy scripts, images, and slow ads. AMP proposed a simplified format that loaded almost instantly. The incentive for websites to adopt it? Google gave them better rankings in search results. Sounds good. The problem is that AMP pages were served hosted on Google's servers, not on the original site's server. The New York Times, the BBC, the Washington Post all had AMP versions hosted on google.com. The URL the user saw was Google's, not the original publisher's. What looked like a speed improvement for the user was in practice a massive delegation of content to Google's servers. The Electronic Frontier Foundation called it out directly. Instead of improving the internet, it was centralizing it around Google. AMP was eventually modified so pages could be hosted outside of Google, but only after significant pressure from the web community. The original design was convenient for Google in ways that were not exactly accidental. And then there's the third-party cookie case. Third-party cookies were small files that websites place in your browser to track you as you move from site to site. They're the technical backbone of how personalized advertising works on the internet. If you see an ad for something you searched on Amazon while reading news on a different site, third-party cookies are part of the explanation. In 2019, Google announced something that sounded incredible. Chrome was going to eliminate support for third-party cookies, the end of cross-site tracking as we know it. Safari and Firefox had already done it or were in the process. Google was joining the movement. Great news, right? Wait, there's a catch. The solution Google proposed to replace cookies was called FLOC, Federated Learning of Cohorts. Instead of 100 advertising companies tracking you individually as you browse, FLOC would process your browsing history inside the browser itself and assign you to a cohort, a group of people with similar interests, which would then be shared with advertisers. The difference from cookies, instead of 100 companies having your profile, now only Chrome, meaning Google, processes your complete browsing history and decides which advertising group to put you in. The Electronic Frontier Foundation was pretty direct about it. FLOC is a terrible idea. Not because it isn't more private than cookies in some ways, it is, but because it builds advertising tracking directly into the browser, managed by the same company that has the most used search engine, the largest advertising network in the world, and 80% of the browsers. The tracking doesn't disappear, it just consolidates in Google's hands. FLOC was eventually replaced by Topics API, a revised version. The final implementation is still in progress and still being debated, but the pattern is the same. Google eliminates a distributed tracking mechanism and replaces it with a centralized one that runs through their hands. Google didn't eliminate tracking, they consolidated it, and they presented it as doing you a favor. Ruthless move, honestly. And if you still have any doubt that Google uses its control over Chromium to protect its business ahead of the user, there's a recent example that doesn't leave much room for interpretation. In 2023, Google implemented what's known as Manifest v3 in Chrome, a change to the API that controls how browser extensions work. The official argument was security and privacy. The real fact was something else. Manifest v3 changed the way extensions can intercept and modify web traffic, and that directly hit ad blockers. uBlock Origin, the most popular ad blocker in the world with tens of millions of users, had to release a light version with stripped-down functionality because Chrome's new rules simply don't allow it to operate the same way it did before. The creator of uBlock Origin was pretty direct about it. Manifest v3 is not a security improvement, it's a deliberate restriction on the tools that do the most damage to Google's advertising business. To put in numbers, Google generates over 75% of its revenue from advertising. Google has 65% of the global browser market. Ad blockers are the primary technical threat to that business model, and Google, through Chromium, has total control over what those extensions can and can't do. The timing is not a coincidence. The justification convinces nobody who has the real technical details, and the result is that the browser used by most of the planet now actively limits the tools that protects those same users from its manufacturer's advertising. That, more than anything in this story, is exactly what the title of this video means. There's a huge irony in all of this that's worth naming before we finish. Chromium is genuinely open source. Anyone can see the code, fork it, build on it, and that has produced better browsers, real innovation, genuine competition, even if it's within the limits of the same technical foundation. Brave blocking trackers on top of Chromium is better for the user than Chrome with nothing. Edge being Chromium means Windows users have a decent browser without installing anything extra. But that same openness created a situation nobody exactly planned for, and that at this point is hard to reverse. Almost the entire industry ended up building on the foundation of a single company, not because anyone forced them, but because building your own foundation is expensive and hard, and Google's was good and free. And the result is an internet that, in its deepest technical core, depends on Google. The most complicated part of this situation is that there's no clear villain to point at. Google didn't threaten anyone. Chromium is genuinely good. The decision by Microsoft, Opera, Brave, and dozens of others to build on it was rational given their circumstances. The problem emerged from the sum of individually logical decisions that collectively produced a concentration that serves nobody except Google. So next time someone tells you they use Brave because they don't want to give their data to Google, you already know what engine is running under every page they open. That's Chromium, the project that's everywhere and that almost nobody knows by name. The one with the no villain's face because it's technically not a villain. It's simply what happens when a company builds something so good, so accessible, and so useful for everyone that in the end, everyone ends up depending on it without realizing it. And that is far more powerful than any monopoly by force. Thanks for making it this far. I hope the video entertained you or taught you something you didn't know before. Don't leave yet. I'm recommending this other video to keep going with the topic. See you there.